That's actually a very interesting question, and there's usually a lot of debate on, what causes homelessness, what is the reason behind it.
Being able to take that step within the program and still have the outreach community with their arms still embrace them,
Yes.
gives them the support where they can feel seen, heard, and worthwhile.
I know people think of our justice system,
Right.
the blind lady, but that's what homelessness is too. It doesn't care your age, your gender, your economic background, that in the tough times, that's what gets you through to the next day. And mine was actually a young mom of two who family dynamics, she had never been on her own, and it was tough dynamics.
Today is a special episode of Curry Girl Tech Talk. We are joining thousands of podcasts from around the world benefiting charitable organizations. I met with the director of the Podcasthon, Jeremy, and I am just in awe of his vision and love the idea of the Podcasthon. I am super excited to participate in this event, and what a wonderful way to launch the third series of Curry Girl Tech Talk. It's going to be an amazing week. I am excited about not only this interview, but listening to the other stories that are going to be broadcast this week. It's going to be amazing. I'm excited about that. I am Krystal Curry, and this is Curry Girl Tech Talk. And this is a special episode because normally I talk about business and technology, but this week we are highlighting charities. And I have with me today Heather Molsbee from Samaritan Inn. She is a vice president at the Samaritan Inn. Samaritan Inn was founded in 1984.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is one of the largest homeless shelters in Texas, with a mission to provide a comprehensive housing program. Thank you, Heather, for joining me today. I am super excited to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was looking at some of the statistics, and it's unfortunate how wide and broad the homelessness issue is. When I looked at the HUD findings, the number of people experiencing homelessness on a single night in 2024 was the highest recorded. There are several factors likely contributing to these historic high numbers. Can you give us some examples of what factors contribute to the homelessness crisis?
Well, that's actually a very interesting question, and there's usually a lot of debate on, what causes homelessness, what is the reason behind it. And there's actually an example that I really love from Greg Colburn. He wrote the book, Homelessness is a Housing Problem. And the scenario he gives is, say you're playing musical chairs, right? And there's always going to be a chair taken away and someone's always going to lose out. But say you have crutches, right? Now, when you don't get a seat, it wasn't the crutches that caused it. There wasn't a chair for you, right? And so with the increasing lack of affordable housing across the nation, there is nowhere in the country that doesn't have an issue with this. And so the lack of affordable housing is the true just underlying cause of homelessness. Now, there are a lot of contributing factors that is going to make someone more likely to fall into that. Right? So you're looking at wages not keeping up with the cost of what's going on around us. You're looking at inflation. You are looking at mental health. You're looking at substance abuse. You're looking at divorce. You're looking at even just job loss or a death in the family. There are so many things, especially with the residents we see. We often have them come to our doorstep and they are like, oh, this, I lost my job and that's why I'm homeless. When really, once we start diving into their story, there's actually something that happened 6 months ago and it led to the next step down and the next step down. Often what you see is we all have resources and we have support. Most of the time, someone can lose their support, but if they still have resources, they're okay. If you lose your resources, but you have a great support system, you're going to be okay. Usually what we're seeing is when someone has lacked the resources or the support and they have come to us and they have now depleted both. And so that's what you're seeing, right? You're seeing that they had the crutches and there wasn't a chair for them. That all of those feed into what
23 of 10,000 people experience homelessness. And then I looked at another demographic, which I thought was kind of alarming, was that 1 in 5 people experiencing homelessness in 2024 were age 55 or older. And then 32% were African American people. And that just saddens me because I'm like, why? I wonder sometimes I think homelessness is because, people are maybe just starting out in their career field, or the wage gaps, or not having enough income to support that with the rising cost of the cost of living. I mean, in inflation, we've seen that, people are not making enough money to be able to live on their own affordably. And you think sometimes that, I guess traditionally we can stereotype and say that may be for youngers.
Homelessness is completely blind. People think of our justice system, the blind lady, but that's what homelessness is too. It doesn't care your age, your gender, your economic background. Sometimes we say that homelessness looks different, but at the end we are starting to see an increase in that generational poverty a little bit. We've had kids who stayed with us before, they're now returning as adults. For us, our biggest age range, what we see is that 35 to 44 range. So it's about 18% of who we have come in. Since we are more of a to-work program as transitional housing versus emergency shelter. But when you're talking about that older generation, that is also going to be an increasing population we see in homelessness, and an increase in the chronic homelessness that we see, because you have an entire generation, one of the largest in our history, that is now aging. They aren't going to be able to work, and there is nowhere you can live on that fixed income of Social Security or disability. And when you look at, one of my favorite go-to for stats is the National Low Income Housing Coalition. There was a stat, I pulled it up before I came today. There are actually 16 million people who have extremely low income, and they're at the risk of housing instability. So when someone is housing burdened, they are spending more than 50% of their income on housing costs. And so when looking at that $16 million number, or 16 million people number, 5.2 million are actually in the labor force. So 5.2 million people are they are working, they are employed, but they're spending more than 50% of their income on housing. And so they're facing instability.
Right.
And then 5.3 million are going to be children. 3.5 million are people with disabilities, and 2.4 million are older adults. And so that 55 or older that you mentioned, that's what is happening, and that's only going to increase. So we do see those individuals when you look at our stats, and so about 14% of our residents are 55 and older. It is something that's coming, and it's something that we're going to need to be prepared for.
How do we get prepared for something like that? I mean, we know Samaritan Inn is kind of unique in that Samaritan Inn is not only a homeless shelter, but it is a full housing program. Tell us a little bit more about the full housing program.
So we started as 10-bed emergency shelter. And so now we actually have capacity for 226. A third of those on any given night are going to be kiddos. And so we're more than just your basic necessities. We do provide shelter. We do provide 3 meals a day. But we also understand that you're supporting someone back to independence and the dignity of self. It takes more than just food and a bed to sleep in. And our program actually delves a little bit higher. We have 4 programs that when someone enters, they agree that they're going to work those 4 pillars. So there's case management. They're going to meet with somebody every week, sometimes more than once a week. There is counseling on site. And so it's a piece of our program, because community living is not that great. It can be really difficult and really draining. So even if someone doesn't have mental health that perhaps they're struggling with, it's just you get an hour a week where you get to complain. And we also have financial education and career development. And so all of those pieces feed together. When I mentioned earlier that, it's often 6 months ago something happened. Well, our hope is that using those 4 pillars, the next time they face that triggering event, they're going to have stronger resources and stronger coping skills so that spiral doesn't happen again. And that's the whole point of the program, is that there's a whole person in all of us, and everybody's needs are going to be different. And so when you're looking at, a single mom who hasn't worked in 5 years and husband has passed away, right? And she has no vehicle. That that stay is going to look very, very different than the 20-year-old young man who can work excessive, crazy overtime hours at a local manufacturing plant and be able to get back into a space on his own very quickly. Our program is like, what do you need the most support around, and how can we build that up for you? For our families, we are the only ones who serve families, single men and single women all on site. We are the only agency in Collin County who serves single men over the age of 24. And so as we look to support our families, the fifth pillar is that we're helping with the kiddos.
Yeah.
Right? If we want our families to be successful and to gain employment, livable employment, or improve with where they're working, get a raise, and let's look at some spending habits. Let's look at all these pieces. In the real world, they might have support from family for the kiddos, or perhaps, the oldest kiddo who's 16 watches the younger kiddos. I myself was like that growing up. But on our space, you can't do that. And so it's that we have to help with the kiddos if there's going to be success for the families as a whole. Right. So we're providing childcare before and after school. We are providing childcare for the non-school age kiddos by paying for 30 days of daycare so that parents can be successful and get to that first paycheck. We are working with getting them to resources. So it is much more extensive than just bed and food.
It absolutely is. That is amazing. And I hadn't heard of any other organization that provides that full range of services. That is absolutely amazing. And residents have an opportunity to take advantage of services outside of just the shelter. Once they have gained independence and gone through most of the pillars, I should say. Can you tell us a little bit about the services that extend outside of just the shelter services?
Well, there's actually two programs currently. We have diversion, which is actually the goal with that money through our continuum of care is to divert people from the shelter. And so we're trying to help people who are just at the beginning stage of homelessness so they don't have to find shelter. If they do come through our shelter, we have our North Texas Gateway apartments. We actually have apartment units. And so once residents have gone through the shelter program and they are in that next step, if there's an apartment available, they can apply for it. And then we have adopters who will adopt that apartment, donors, volunteers, and they furnish the apartment. Residents can move in there and they can stay there for up to 18 months, a little bit longer, depending upon the school year, of course. And they're paying that rent, but they're still receiving the services. So the intent of Gateway is to really serve those individuals who need a little bit more support before they're completely on their own. We've had one resident before where it had been 20 plus years since she had lived on her own. It had been abusive relationships after abusive relationships. And there is a fear when you go back on your own. And so before just saying, okay, out of the nest you go, Gateway is that stepping stone so that they can continue counseling and case management and that support and feel more secure. They're, getting 18 months of rental history on that evictions. So it is truly a nice little, you're going to pay a reduced rent. Right. You're going to have that continued support. And then when they leave, all those belongings that were furnished in their apartment by donors, they take with them.
That's awesome. That's amazing, Heather. My goodness, that is definitely a boost for anyone. People want to feel like they are seen, that they are secure, that they are safe. And being able to take that step within the program and still have the outreach community with their arms still embrace them gives them the support and where they can feel seen, heard, and worthwhile. It is worth the investment and I'm worthy of this. And I think having people, like you mentioned, have that dignity at the same time they're gaining independence, but still provide that safe haven and that, safety net for them to be able to have that community environment it's just an awesome opportunity, because that's one thing I know you start with letting them know that they are seen, that, and letting them know that they deserve to have shelter.
And we hear that from our residents a lot, that they felt humanized again when they came to us. And that's a good feeling for our team. That's our goal. Our vision is that, we live where everybody feels empowered to contribute to our shared society. right? And so that means more than just us. That means their dignity, their awareness of being a part of something bigger, and making sure that they're a part of the community. Mm-hmm. And so, even the Gateway adopters, they get to know those residents. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the residents end up being a part of those adopters' lives after they move on. Like they're joining their churches or, mm-hmm. They're end up working. Mm-hmm. That's our vision. That's our goal, is let's help you from here to here.
Absolutely. Is there one story that sticks out with you with regards to the people that you've been able to serve at Samaritan Inn?
Yes. Everyone who deals with homelessness, they always have that one story that in the tough times, that's what gets you through to the next day. And mine was actually a young mom of two who, family dynamics, she had never been on her own. And it was tough dynamics. There was manipulation by mom and sister, and she needed to learn how to be herself and to be a mom. And she came to us and she was scared and I was worried. But every day she worked hard to learn and to grow, budgeting, learning how to say no to mm-hmm. mom and sister. The moment I realized she was going to be fine was the day she came home from work and was able to say, I wanted to buy this, but I'd heard in my head, is this a need or a want? And I realized it was just a want and I didn't have to worry about it. And it wasn't maybe just a couple months later, she was in her own place. She was doing great. I still see her on occasion. A year later, she had saved up enough money to take her kids on a trip. She had bought Christmas for the first time ever, all on her own. And she was holding strong. And she had realized she was her own person and she was a mother. And she made that happen for herself and her kids. And I just got to be a part of watching it happen. That's the one that, on my rough days, I think about her and I think about those kids. Yeah. And I know that as long as every day we are working to make that happen for somebody else, then we keep doing it.
Yes. Yeah. Doing a great job at it. All right. I hear that you guys are having an amazing charity event in April.
Yes. April 4th, we are hosting our In Bloom. So it's a nice little luncheon, kind of a ladies' luncheon, but guys definitely show up. And our speaker this year is Nancy Lieberman. So it is very, very exciting. Tickets are on sale, so you can jump onto our website, go to our Facebook page, get in there, get some tickets. There's still sponsorships available. If any businesses or anything want to get a little 10-person table and 2 people from that table get to go meet Nancy Lieberman.
Oh, awesome.
VIP event. But it's going to be very exciting with her, being able to speak from lived experience and being able to just share her knowledge base with everybody in April is going to be absolutely amazing. Awesome. So it's going to be at Dallas Renaissance Legacy West on April 4th.
Okay. Well, you guys heard it. If any businesses would like to join the luncheon, it's open to the public.
That's right.
You can purchase a table. All right. Now, I want to make sure that we give people hope and what process they would need to go through if they are experiencing homelessness or have questions about how they can get involved and help. Let's start with if they themselves or they know a friend or family member who is experiencing homelessness, what can they do? How can Samaritan Inn help them, or what process do they need to go through?
So you can always visit our website, which is samin.org, and there is actually a whole section of if you need help, kind of what to do. We do applications for residency on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And what we do is we highly recommend if you are needing help, that you call the morning. So Sunday morning, Tuesday morning, Thursday morning, and you call to see if there's space available. We never want someone to be wasting gas, utilizing the last of that support system to get a ride when there's not even beds available, right? Sometimes people are walking, and that's a lot of energy, or they're trying to take off work. So we really encourage calling ahead of time to make sure that there's even space available for your need. But we do those applications. We try and process people same day when we have openings, and then try and get them in as quickly as we can. Yeah. So it's the phone number is 972-542-5655. 5302, and the extension is 244. That'll get you to the fastest answer.
Awesome. All right. And then lastly, if anybody wants to help out, if they want to join in and help Samaritan Inn, what are the ways that they can do that?
Well, we cannot run without the thousands of volunteers that we have. So first and foremost, come and volunteer. If you're a hands-on person, we have volunteers that help in our dining room. We have volunteers that help with pop-up shops. We have volunteers that help with landscaping. And we have volunteers that help with childcare. That you have the gamut. Donations, whatever it is, whatever your skill set is, we can probably use you. Obviously, the biggest need, especially in face of the unknown right now when it comes to federal funds, is financial contributions. It takes a lot to try and take care of, the 100+ people that we serve every single night. And so financial contributions to make that happen, we still have light bills, we have utilities, we have all of those needs. That unrestricted funding helps make all of that happen. And then, of course, if you have education around homelessness and you hear something that's wrong, correct it, right? Fear can be driven by the unknown. If you know, share it. Don't stand back. If you hear misinformation or you know better, direct them to the right resource.
That's right.
Because it's going to take all of us to help end this problem.
That's right. That's right. Awesome. Awesome. I want people to know that, there is help. And there are resources available. If you are in the state of Texas, Samaritan Inn is an awesome resource for you. And then if you want to volunteer and help, there are ways that you can do that as well through donations. We're so grateful helping people the way that you are.
Thank you.
Such an awesome mission. All right. So one last thing we're going to wrap up. It is Women's History Month.
Yes, it is.
Yes. And women rule, right? All right. So I'm asking this question about women's leadership. If you were to sum up your leadership in one word, what would it be?
I've been trying to think of this, and it's really hard to find that one word. But I want to say strategic. I love puzzles. I even have a tattoo of a puzzle because there is a bigger picture, and it doesn't just come out. Right? You have to make the pieces fit, and there's only, it goes one way. And so you really have to make sure that you're putting the pieces together to get the picture you want.
Yeah. Hey, I like that. That's
right?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Everybody's a piece of the puzzle.
That's right.
Especially when you're looking at homelessness.
Yeah.
Everybody can be a piece of that solution. It is not just the Samaritan Inn. It is every partner agency we work with, every police department we work with, every ISD that we work with to get our kids back to school. It takes all of us. And so as a leader for myself, that is what I strive to do, is we have to work and make sure the right pieces are in the right places.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I think that you're right, because homelessness is not just affecting Texas, but it's affecting people nationwide. Bringing awareness to it, for us to help people everywhere is definitely a goal. Yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening in to this awesome interview that I had with Heather. She is absolutely amazing. Thank you for joining today. Based on HUD findings, the number of people experiencing homelessness on a single night in 2024 was the highest recorded. 23 of every 10,000 people experienced homelessness. 1 in 5 people experiencing homelessness in 2024 were age 55 or older. In most areas of the United States, you can dial 211 to connect with local social services and get referrals for emergency housing. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, offers programs and resources to find shelter, get temporary housing, or avoid homelessness. The National Runaway Safe Line hotline is 1-800-786-2929. Emergency housing for veterans is 1-877-4AID-VET or 1-877-424-3838. There is one more way that you can help combat homelessness and support those experiencing homelessness or are currently houseless. There is a film. The film is called No Address, and it follows the storylines of how people fall into homelessness. So it's a bit of educational, but it also follows their bond and how they create a family unit through their trials together. For every ticket sold of the film No Address, you are ultimately helping someone who is experiencing homelessness. 50% of the net profits go to nonprofits making an impact in local communities nationwide. Hope is coming. Thank you for joining. I am Krystal Curry. Take care.